You're gonna hate this, but this is the only piece of Wonder Woman branded clothing I own. Hopefully, I'm not too late to talk about Wonder Woman 1984. But I can't stop thinking about how much of a colossal failure this project is, both as a movie on its own and as a follow-up to the first Wonder Woman movie that I and so many others really gelled with. This sequel is like one of the biggest letdowns since, like...
Insert bad thing to compare to here.
Oh, sugar honey iced tea.
Martin! Hey! Hold up! I'm gonna kill you! Hold up! Whoa!
Alright, so what you might notice from the very first scene of this movie is that everything takes way too long. This movie is 2.5 hours long, and if you were to ask me why, I don't think I could tell you. And the thing about it is, I know exactly where they went wrong. You can feel in each and every sequence that it should have been cut in half. Right there from the get-go, little Diana is doing her Amazon Ninja Warrior thing, winning the race so hard, but looks back at the other Amazon she's beating and gets knocked off her horse. Like, ha! I get it! Hubris! You must not overestimate yourself. I have found the theme of the movie. Let's move on, thank you. But then it just keeps going and tries to shift its theme into cheating, which I don't really think this is, but we'll come back to it. Duh. Alright, what you don't need to worry about is how I have John Cena wristbands on. Okay, that's what you don't need to worry about, okay? And yet another example of how all these scenes are pointlessly long is in the exact next sequence. Also, hey, Diana seems so floaty in all of her wire work. What, were the effects developed by the Osaka team? See, I'm still a KH tuber. Yeah, you could point to the completely unimportant, unnamed character that never shows up again in the entire runtime, screaming no into a camera that is way too close for way too long. But I'm gonna point to this shot. Why choose to do this? We get it. She's having this cutesy interaction with the child to keep up the loose internal logic of Wonder Woman being this universe's main cryptid. Why can't Bigfoot wear a furkini? Like why does our timeline get all the unsexy cryptids like lake monsters and wild men? Oh, I'm so sorry if I just insulted your monster kink. But have you considered getting your monster boyfriend to show a little skin in solidarity? Part-time cryptozoologist. But you have to pick one, Patty. Otherwise you're just hanging around in this dead space. And now I'm thinking about how weird all of this is. It's like running into a really awkward person who refuses to say goodbye. Oh my god, is this supposed to be immersive?
Like my nails? Just got them done.
I originally had this section titled Barbara Gordon is here, I guess, because I thought it was funny. But I don't really want to drown. You know what I mean? What? I think we should have a mandate on superhero movies that you can't have more than one villain. Because somewhere in Maxwell Lord there is a good Wonder Woman movie. And somewhere in Cheetah there is a good Wonder Woman movie. Heck, there might even be a good Maxwell Lord Cheetah movie, since there is a good sizable portion here where the movie does just focus on these two. But we are introduced to Barbara, and she is the nerdiest of all nerds. And she spills her briefcase full of papers. And her and Diana have this little meet cute. And the scene takes way too fucking long. But the entire time, your sapphic sirens are going off.
Good morning.
Hi. Those are cool. I like those. The animal print. Do you want to get lunch? I'm not now, obviously. It's morning, but later today, or doing a
Have a nice day. Bye, Diana.
Sorry. You know, we could go and grab early dinner and talk about it. Dorky. Yeah, let's go. Wow. So funny. I mean, no one's had a laugh like this in such a long time.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever been in love?
Oh, come on! Diana even later saves her from a sexual assault. And you're like, wow, finally, the gays are getting the fanfic tropes. Amazing. Wonderful. That's wonderful. That would probably be too much, right back to back. But nope. Barbara is just so girl jealous of Diana's innate girl power. I want all your girlness for myself so that I could have the girl boss plaque on my door. And her entire arc just plays into the trope of the only reason you didn't have enough confidence, girl, is because you weren't wearing the right clothes. How do you expect to be a female CEO without wearing any cheetah print? Duh. And then we have to swing back around to Barbara beating up her potential assaulter. But it's supposed to be a bad thing? Like, we get that it's excessive, but how is this supposed to be anything other than empowering? I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a child, I'm a mother. But the worst part about Barbara is that she has this black homeless friend who is in only 2 scenes, and his sole purpose in the entire movie is just to track Barbara's descent into badness. And also, when we are introduced to Leon, we see that he's reading Waiting for Godot, and you start to go through the motions, right? Like, oh, okay, well, I guess you could say that Vladimir and Estragon are like presented as homeless / poverty-stricken people, but we can go further than that. Come on, okay. So Waiting for Godot is all about like waiting for a savior to come to ease the pain of your life, but that savior may or may not ever show up, much like maybe waiting to see if Diana will ever truly announce herself as Wonder Woman to the world and let them know that they have a savior. But then Leon never shows up again after Barbara runs away from beating up her would-be rapist. Not even in the wishing all over the world part or the tacked on Hallmark Winter Wonderland segment. So what was the point of this? Was it just to show a sympathetic, well-read homeless man? And then it dawns on you, oh my God. Did they only have Waiting for Godot in here because it's spelled like gal's name? Not a single fucking choice in this entire movie was at all given a second thought.
We all make choices, but that was a choice. Choices. Choices. Choices.
So the thing that this movie revolves around is a monkey's paw. Characters refer to it as being like a monkey's paw. In and out of universe, people understand what a monkey's paw is, and that that's what this monkey's paw is, except it is not a monkey's paw because I guess taxidermied animal parts just don't fit the aesthetic. Understandable, have a nice day. And through the magic of a monkey's paw that is not a monkey's paw, Chris Pine is brought back from the dead and put in a random man's body. And this is where a collective yike erupted from audiences everywhere. And I think Patty Jenkins got some well-deserved criticism here, cause like, for how quickly everyone was talking about this, I seriously doubt that this issue never came up over the movie's production. Like, we understand that transferring your boyfriend's consciousness into another body to take advantage of that body isn't a real-world thing, but it's about a basic understanding of autonomy. And movies are in just pre-production for so long, sometimes years, and have so many people working on them, and you're telling me that no one caught this misstep before anything came out? Why am I talking about rape so much in a Wonder Woman movie? And this is where I start to formulate my theory that Patty and other higher up decision makers on this project, I am just using her name as shorthand, for every decision on this movie, just went with the first thought that she had and refused to really examine it. Like the whole Chris Pine comes back from the dead by possessing another man's body comes from this 80s movie, Heaven Can Wait. But why? Why do you need to reference this one movie? What makes this movie so important for this one aspect of the story? And at this point, I kind of just think that Heaven Can Wait was in a stack of 80s movies that Patty watched to get into the era and felt the need to include a reference to and refused to ever think about the why. And that's how we get the whole And I'm gonna pop into the Middle East issue here for 1 second. Just like the movie did. There is a great article by Roxana Haddadi that explains this much better from a Middle Eastern American's perspective, which you should absolutely read, link down below. But I just want to be here to say, once again, what was the point? Like, you know the culture that you are making this movie in. You know your American audience will have a lot of bad baggage and preconceived notions with them whenever they watch anything about the Middle East. So why go there if you have nothing to say about it?
So Lulu, what do you think of the problems in the Middle East? Wow.
Out of all the overly long and pointless sequences in this movie, this is the most longest and most pointless. Like, Maxwell Lord could have magicked oil into existence from anywhere, from nothing, and he doesn't even end up getting anything from this exchange anyway. But you have to go to the Middle East to have this drawn out, confused... I don't even know how to finish this, so I guess I'll just zip back to DC now. One of my biggest questions about this setup is just, why 1984? In all interviews, Patty Jenkins seems to give a different answer, while also saying very assuredly, there's definitely a reason, you guys. But having seen the movie, it was absolutely just Warner Brothers saying, make it Stranger Things. The excessive extravagance and arrogance of the 80s doesn't really make an appearance. There's nothing Orwellian about this story other than this one piece of promo. Wow, such Orwell. Very 84. Much surveillance. Watch me, big bro. And I think maybe this comes down to the particular problems that this project had with adapting Maxwell Lord.
Saw you hanging out with Caitlin yesterday.
Rebecca, it's not what you think.
I won't hesitate, bitch.
The most famous storyline that Maxwell Lord has in the comics is the whole... And this storyline, funnily enough, involved mind control and television. Oh, see, look, something Orwellian that might have warranted being set in the specific year of 1984. You see, Lord is mind controlling Superman into believing that he is being majorly cucked by some supervillains. And also making him see Diana as those supervillains, so they're having a big fight. Eventually, Diana binds Lord and tells him to stop, but he just won't. At the rate he's going, Supes could go on a world-ending murderous rampage because he's getting NPR'd so freaking hard, you guys. You see, this is why I don't think men should be president. They're just far too emotional for the position. And so time is ticking and Lord just won't budge. And eventually Diana asks what it would take for him to stop. And compelled by the lasso of truth, so we know that Maxwell Lord says this with his entire being, kill me. I don't know what you expected. But unbeknownst to Diana, right before she killed him, Lord started a worldwide broadcast so no one has the context as to why. They just know that Wonder Woman just murked a dude. And what does that mean for her superhero-dom? That everyone knows that she killed someone, yada yada.
She snapped his neck. She snapped his neck so quickly, so calmly. There was no rage in Diana's eyes. There was nothing. Oh. not even remorse.
But the problem is, a Batman movie already had mind control through TVs, and a Superman movie already had a neck snap. But the whole reason of having Diana be the one to do a very public, very brutal killing is to show how she differs from the other two in the DC triumvirate. Batman famously does not kill his enemies, and Boy Scout Clark Kent is too busy saving kittens from trees. Unless that kitten looks at his girl in some kind of way. But the point of the Maxwell Lord neck snap was to demonstrate that Wonder Woman exemplifies the archetypal feminine strength, extending compassion and motherly sweetness to everyone. Until you run out of it. The point was to show that if pushed to an extreme, Wonder Woman, not Batman or Superman, will be the one to step up to make the hard call and do the right but difficult thing. Honestly, it's very clumsily written, but it's just a trolley problem, and it makes more sense emotionally than it does logically. And I personally kind of really like the idea of learning where to draw the line, and that it is still very feminine to coldly and methodically get rid of a threat that is outside the limits of compassion. But this was already done, and already done better in the first Wonder Woman movie, showing where to extend compassion and where to hold it. And I know Dr. Poison has done the war crimes, but again, makes more sense metaphorically than it does logistically. But on top of that, the DCEU is a universe where Superman has already done the snippety snap, and Batman brands people so that they'll be extrajudiciously killed in prison. So having Diana be a methodical killer for the greater good here just doesn't differentiate her like it did in the comics. But I feel like there's more interesting questions here than what ended up happening in Wonder Woman 84. Like, if your first movie was about showing your enemies compassion, a point that they maybe seem a little too focused on for the one female-led superhero movie.
Understanding and love and forgiveness.
Love and compassion and kindness.
Loving and forgiving and beautiful and kind.
About love and hope.
Forgiving and kind.
Love and compassion.
What the fuck is going on in here? Then a way to step it up for this sequel might have been to give Diana a problem her compassion couldn't fix. And you know what? Maybe we do have to turn to holding the severed heads of our enemies. Not all the times, but some of the times. Please, please let me hold your severed head.
You cheated. Pirate.
I haven't talked about cheating until the very end, even though I spent most of this video not even touching it. Hey, wait a minute. Is this poetic in some way? Am I trying to say something to you? Demonstrate a failing of the film in a very literal way? I think I am. I think that's what I'm doing. So the lesson that the movie is saying is trying to teach us is don't cheat. Cheating death, cheating to gain power, all that. Making wishes to magically fix your problems? Wonder Woman 1984. Having an aspiration is cheating. But still I go back to, this is a very haphazardly implemented theme. Like back at the beginning, I don't think little Diana cheated or took a shortcut. She kind of just got back on her horse. Which, isn't that like a saying or something? Maybe I've heard that before. Then you don't talk about cheating for most of the movie's runtime, and then Maxwell Lord cheated to get a success. Max is a failed businessman, a con artist who has been pulling himself up by his bootstraps his entire life, until he magically makes a wish and instantly becomes mega successful. Hate to break it to you, but that's not cheating. Like, if you really wanted to go down the road of a businessman who cheats, you could show that he was born into a well-off family, who went to all the best schools simply because of the zip code that he lived in, who got into an Ivy League college not because of any merit of his own, but because his parents paid off someone somewhere along the application process, who started off his business career with his pops giving him a small loan of $1 million. And if you really wanted to lean into the girl bossiness of it all, you could have him rise through the ranks by stealing spots that his much more qualified female counterparts were looked over for simply because of their womanhood. That says cheating more to me. But instead, at the 11th hour, we get this montage expanding on his backstory, turning him from a down-on-his-luck businessman to the tragic story of a Latin immigrant who grew up impoverished and in an abusive household. That throws his con artistry and grifting into an entirely different light, and you have now created a man who has never been able to catch a break in his life, and he finally gets his one wish, and you say no. Don't wish. Don't hope. And this kind of reminds me of a recent quote from Aaron Sorkin, where he says, when he writes bad people, they ultimately have a come to Jesus moment and everything is resolved. But as demonstrated very clearly by recent events, that doesn't really seem to happen too much in real life. People without a conscience don't tend to grow them, even when we need them to. So the writers kind of wrote themselves into this problem of having two villains. One that could be reformed, and one that's the cheater. Not the cheetah, the cheater. But you have to pick one, Patty, because the both of them don't really seem to mesh. And the thing about these wishes is just so pessimistic. Like, even with Wonder Woman's big empowerment speech that goes on for so long it would make any shonen protag feel drained.
But he's gone. And that's the truth, just as it was. The truth is, world, you must be the hero. Announce your wish. I was talking to everyone. You're not the only one who is once more them back. You're afraid anymore, powerless. Do you see the truth?
Yeah, I get it, Diana, but there's only so many ways that you can say my friends are my power. Except you don't really seem to have any friends. That's fucking weird. But it's the content of this sequence that's so dark. The central thesis of Wonder Woman 1984 is don't wish, don't hope, don't expect anything more than the lot in life you are given. Hail Malthus. Hail Malthus! And this pessimism extends all over the world in this film. There is not a person shown that doesn't ask for their singular, limited benefit. You're telling me there wasn't a single Esmeralda, or even just a pageant queen, who asked for world peace? And you're also telling me that in the year of 1984, there wasn't a single person that said, hey, I wish my government cared enough to provide health care to me and my community of people like me who are dying from a pandemic. You don't see how that might have been applicable to a film with a 2020 release date. I mean, hey, 90,000 people dead to a highly infectious, highly deadly, highly preventable disease isn't a lot compared to 500,000. But it was a lot for the time. You know, maybe, just maybe, having lived through the hell that was the last year, you know, the year that got this specific project delayed for 6 months, would have put an idea in your head to maybe make a comment about something. But no. Hallmark said. That's what we get instead. I mean, the 80s did have their Trump. I am once again asking Call of Duty to let me fucking shoot Reagan! I mean, they had Trump in the 80s because, you know, we can't elect anybody under a bazillion years old. You do not get to say, it's not political, it's not political, and then plant yourself in a squarely political space and refuse to say anything. By doing that, by refusing to acknowledge AIDS, by refusing to acknowledge the faults of our presidents, by refusing to acknowledge the inherent inequalities of our system, by refusing to acknowledge America's piss-poor relations with the Middle East, by refusing to acknowledge autonomy, and by refusing to acknowledge the complexities of feminine strength and the relationships between women, you are actually saying quite a lot.
Now let's get you kids home.
Wait a minute, Xena can't fly.
I told you, I'm not Xena. I'm Lucy Lawless.
But I do want to back up a bit now, because I know I just came down pretty hard on Patty Jenkins for the last however long amount of time. But I do want to at least give her that she seemed pretty pressed by the 2-year development of this movie. I think what we don't want to do is do it back to back. It's been great doing these 2 movies back to back, but I think it's important to give a little rest in between, and I like doing other things in between, and Gal has other things to do. We have to see if we both feel like making the movie we think we want to make when the moment comes. So 3 years from now, 3-4 years, it would not be 2. I'll tell you that much, I'm not doing that again. Talks of which started when the first one was still in production, and what might have even been a year and a half since she confirmed that the film was done, VFX and all, in December of 2019. But obviously that doesn't include the Hallmark set, which I am admittedly assuming was a reshoot to make sense for the new December release date.
4th, of course.
And when it feels like a lot of the choices here didn't have a lot of thought put into them, that's probably because there wasn't enough time to. And that is, of course, assigning Miss Jenkins with maybe too much responsibility for all the choices that were, in all likelihood, probably mostly studio mandates. Obviously, it is very beneficial that these huge projects from these huge studios don't have all their dirty laundry aired out. And I do really feel for people who have to create something of substance under a hard time frame and in varying working conditions. This was just one of those productions where the ball was dropped, and it was dropped hard. And it's something that not even a Morning After Chris Pine could save.
Well, shit, Diana.
Also, what was with the full screen bookends? You could never be WandaVision, Wonder Woman 1984. You could never be her.